we have time in every dimension. And the reason for it is because like dimensions are not separate. Like I don't know why when people get to the fourth dimension, they want to act like the fourth dimension is something that's outside of the construct. Like, hey, what's up YouTube? I'm back from the video, you guys. It's your boy K9 Games, and today we're gonna be talking about how to explain like consciousness through numbers, and I'm also adding like a little bit of information on like dimensions and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm gonna basically help you guys understand what consciousness is and how to measure it and all that good stuff. So if you like what I'm basically explaining here, I want you to like, subscribe, comment down below what you think, and also if you want to use this information for yourself and like to go and like do your own studies and release papers and stuff on it, that's totally cool. Just make sure you mention my name and give me some type of credit, all right? But anyway, let's hop right into it. And if you're wondering what this got to do with fitness and bodybuilding, got everything to do with fitness and bodybuilding. So right off the bat, I do want to give a little fair warning because I'm recording this straightforward, that I may have to edit out a couple parts, and it may be like a little bit of stuttering and all that kind of stuff, so just bear with me, all right? But anyways, let's hop right into it. First of all, I want to talk about how I even got onto this subject and why I made this video. So basically I was talking about consciousness with a couple other let's just say really smart people, but there was a guy who kind of didn't really understand where we were coming from. We were talking about the consciousness because of his thinking and everything like that, and he wanted it to be explained in numbers because math is the best way that he can, like, math is his only logical way that he can come to an understanding of something. So I was like, yo, that's totally cool, and I explained it to him, but I realized that it was also a pretty good thing that I could probably do for a lot of you guys, because I know a lot of you guys have trouble believing in like consciousness and manifestation and all that kind of stuff because of the logical mind and things that we were taught. And sometimes the numbers can't add up for you if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what the consciousness is to begin with. Okay, so you kind of see what the paradox is with that, because if you don't really know what the consciousness is, it's kind of hard to understand it in numbers. You know what I mean? But the thing is, if you know what the consciousness is, you can teach it in numbers, and then someone who don't know what the consciousness is can understand it in numbers, and then understand it in like all the other psychological ways that people try to explain consciousness. All right. But anyways, let's hop right into it, y'all. First of all, I do want to start off with the most simplest of explanations of what the consciousness is. So basically the consciousness is everything, okay? It's everything, but it's also nothing at the same time, okay? So whenever you're conscious, okay, you're experiencing like the waking reality. You know what I'm saying? You're aware of a single point of time through, you know what I'm saying, going through change and all that kind of stuff. Whenever you're unconscious or like sleep, you're still within consciousness. You're just not conscious of, like, you know what I mean, of your exact consciousness, if that makes sense. So you're basically sleep. So what makes this pretty powerful is because, see, your waking state, whenever you are conscious, your awareness is very let's just say tunnel vision for our actual omniverse that we operate in. I didn't say universe and I didn't say multiverse. I said that for a reason. I said omniverse for a very good reason, and you're gonna understand this as we go on within the video. But the reason why I said omniverse and not the universe or the multiverse is because there's a lot more going on, okay? So anyways, whenever you're actually sleeping though, you are still conscious though. That's the part that gets people kind of tricked up, because you're not conscious to this reality, this universe, right? So you're basically unconscious. So if I was an observer of you, right, because I'm currently in this specific point of time, I'm observing you and I see you go to sleep, you would be unconscious to me, right? But for you, you would still be, like, depending on if you're dreaming or not, like, I'm specifically just talk about if you're dreaming, right? You would still be conscious, right? But just not in this reality. Now, like, let's say if you didn't dream, then you're basically fully unconscious, but you're still within consciousness. Because what consciousness is this allness, or what some people call God and stuff like that. But consciousness is this allness. Okay, it's everything. It's all everything, but it's also nothing as well, because everything truthfully is not anything at all. But we're gonna get into that too, okay? I ain't gonna go too far off yet, all right? I ain't going to but I just wanted to give you guys like a good basic understanding of what I'm talking about, okay? So let me go over that one more time real quick. Being conscious, right? Whenever you're conscious, you are aware of being at a specific point of time. Whenever you're unconscious, you're not aware of that specific point of time, okay? But you're still residing inside of consciousness, okay? So what consciousness is the all state, but between you being asleep or awake, because you're either conscious or unconscious, but you're still residing within consciousness, okay? So if we were to put this into numbers real quick, 0 would be considered as you being unconscious, right? And 1 would be considered you being conscious. Okay, does that make sense? 0, if we're talking about numbers, 0 is you being unconscious and 1 is you being conscious, okay? Leave out 2, 3, 9. Let's act like those don't exist. We're only working with, well, you can act like they exist too because we're going to get on to that later. But I just want you to focus on 0 and 1. 0 is unconscious. 1 is being conscious, okay? And then the concept of numbers itself, right? So the concept of like that old motherfucker like a million years ago that found numbers and came up with numbers and all that kind of shit. All this within itself is the consciousness, okay? That's the consciousness, okay? Does that make sense? The numbers itself would be the consciousness, okay? Now, the number 1 would be the awareness of the numbers, and the number 0, it's just also just the numbers, but you know you're not conscious of it, so you're a 0. But the numbers itself is the consciousness, okay? I hope that made sense. Now let's hop into the dimensions real quick so we can really get deeper into this. So I have me a quick paper here. You have the first dimension. Well, actually, let's start at the 0 dimension, okay? So the 0 dimension, it looks like a point right here because I colored it in, but I only colored it in because that doesn't supposed to exist, okay? So the 0 dimension, it really don't supposed to be nothing, but I just wanted to put this here so y'all guys have something to know what I'm talking about. But this doesn't actually exist. Like you can't physically show or interpret the 0 dimension, okay? Because it doesn't exist. It's supposed to not exist, okay? And that's also going to negative dimensions too. But that's a whole nother level of understanding, okay? Let's just stick with them these first. And then so you got the first dimension, okay? And what makes this pretty interesting, you guys, is because one thing that I came to understand is the first dimension and the 9th dimension is pretty similar, okay? But we're going to get into that later. But you got the first dimension in which we measure in like math and everything as just being a point, correct? And that's pretty agreeable. We can all agree if you were to have just one dimension, it would just be a point. Then you got the second dimension, which gives you length and height and all that kind of stuff. And you got the third dimension, which is the one that most people are aware of, which is the physical reality. You get depth and all that kind of stuff. You get a cube. That would be the third dimension, okay? And now it gets kind of weird when you get to the 4th dimension because right after this spatial dimension, we kind of leave what we call as the physical reality. The 3rd dimension governs the first set of the physical reality. The reason why I say the first set is because when we get to the 6th dimension, that's also the physical reality, but yeah, it's complicated, okay? So anyways, whenever you get to the 4th dimension, the reason why I drew like a weird tesseract looking thing is because the 4th dimension is not actually like it's not a physical dimension in the way that we think, okay? So whenever we get to these higher dimensions, you guys have to stop with the thinking of things being physical, that they have to be like this, okay? This, just because it's not paper or anything, doesn't mean it's not physical, okay? And the reason why I'm saying this is because having this understanding will make it very easy for you to understand these higher dimensions, okay? Because what you think is not physical is physical, okay? Even things like sound and light, okay? Those are all physical things, okay? You may not be able to touch them the way you touch this paper, but if I was to shine a really, really bright light on you for a while, you're going to feel that burn, okay? And also, if I was to blast some loud music on you, your shirt is going to move. And there's a reason for all that, okay? And it's because these things are physical, just not the way that you think, okay? and it gets even more weird when you get to like the the fourth dimension and everything, is because not like how you remember how I said that sound is physical and you can feel it on your shirt and everything. When you get to these higher dimensions, hold on, you can't really measure it the way that you measure every other dimension, okay? Because these dimensions kind of govern our own bodies. That's what makes it difficult, is because like these other dimensions, like it's not something that we can like really like measure with our hands yet, okay? But anyways, let me explain what the fourth dimension is. So the fourth dimension, you guys, is basically, here, I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's basically just time, movement, and like speed, okay? Now, the reason why I say it's time, a lot of people don't like to say that it's time because they don't technically understand what time is itself. Because they say, the fourth dimension is time, we have time in every dimension, And obviously, yes, we do. We have time in every dimension, and the reason for that is because the like dimensions are not separate. Like I don't know why when people get to the fourth dimension, they want to act like the fourth dimension is something that's outside of the construct. Like no, the fourth dimension is within the construct. That's why they say that it's time, and that's why you can have time in the first dimension and in the last dimensions, or whatever dimensions you want to go to. It's like the same thing with the first dimension. Like you have the first dimension in all dimensions too. You always have that point. And once you get to the second dimension, you have the second dimension in every other dimensions too. You don't know what I mean? Like how you're not gonna just for some reason get to the third dimension and lose the second dimension. You can't have a second dimension you can't have a third dimension without the second dimension. The same thing with the fourth dimension. You can't really have a fourth dimension without these lower dimensions, and I'm gonna get to that, okay? So movement, okay, so the fourth dimension is basically, to make it simple, if you're watching a movie, right? Being able to see the movie from the start to the end, that's the fourth dimension. It's that comprehension of movement through space and time and stuff. I mean, like, it's movement through space. You know what I mean? It's like the measurement of movement through space, okay? And so if you wanted to look at this physically, right? It would look kind of like a little tube. Like imagine if you had a tube, right? And like people were within the tube, starting from like a baby down to when he died. That's how you would look at a fourth dimensional thing. Or if you were looking at what people call as like a tesseract, right? And you want to know why it looks all like weird and everything, is because you're trying to look at it through different points of time. Like you're looking at a cube, but it's constantly in different points of time and space at the same time, simultaneously, okay? And the reason for that is because we're trying to picture a moving thing as something still. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's just kind of complicated too. But anyways, let's go on to the fifth dimension, okay? So we have the fifth dimension, which is one of my favorite dimensions, okay? Because this is kind of goes into what people call that like multiple realities and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, let's say if there was a Big Bang, right? When it comes to the fifth dimension, it's basically everything that could have happened from the start of the Big Bang to the end, but like all the possibilities within. So like I have this here to kind of show what I mean. So do y'all remember how I was talking about them like little squiggly things? This represents the fourth dimension, this like little squiggly thing, okay? And then the people within kind of represents the third dimension. And you know, obviously what makes up these people represents the second and the first and the zero dimension. Now, when you come to the fifth dimension, you can kind of see like, if you were looking at two different timelines, there's a different beginning and a different end, okay? And that's what makes the fifth dimension is the measuring of different beginning and ends and timelines within the same universe. Okay? I hope that made sense, okay? And then you have the sixth dimension, okay? And then so with the sixth dimension, right? It gets kind of complicated. Well, yeah, it does get kind of complicated because you remember how I said that this has like different, like a different beginning and like a different. When we get to the sixth dimension, it is the understanding of different universes and not just different realities. The fifth dimension is different beginning and ends within the same universe. When you get to the sixth dimension, it's different universes. Be like there may not even have been a Big Bang. Like there may have just been like a Cheeto the whole time, which is my joke of the Cheeto dimension. Cause that means that there was never a Big Bang. It was just a randomly just a Cheeto there the whole time. I don't know how that was possible, but that's the point. Is that there's different logics, but within the sixth dimension, there's still logic though. It's just different. Okay, it kind of cut off, but yeah, like how I was saying, it's just different logics. Now the thing is, if you're in this universe here, right, and like you try to tell this person like how let's say something you got from this universe to this universe, your logic is going to be completely different than this person's logic, right? But when it comes to the sixth dimension, their logic isn't wrong and your logic isn't wrong, but also your logic wouldn't be right and neither would their logics be because they're from different universes with different logics, okay? That's the whole point about that, okay? So basically, what was possible or not possible is just will be possible or not possible in these other let's just say universes. But okay, so once you get to the seventh dimension though, now this is where things really start to pick up the pace. So once you get to the seventh dimension, this is like the intro to the Omniverse that I was talking about. And also this is where you have to start if you were on like a spiritual journey. This is where you really would have to start communicating with others to really understand. Cause the Omniverse, once you get to the Omniverse, that's basically like the creation of logic and understanding and everything like that and reasoning and how we can go for like how the seventh dimension, let's just call it the evolution dimension, okay? Because that's where creation happens, all right? And when I say creation, I mean all creation. I mean from the seventh dimension down, okay? Once you get to the seventh dimension, you can basically change everything, anything. It can be anything, everything. You know what I mean? All within the Omniverse, though. Okay. The reason why I say the Omniverse is because the Omniverse is everything and all things that we can like. It's everything and all things, right? But the reason why I keep doing that, like I keep pausing, is because when you get to the eighth dimension, there's multiple omniverses, and that's where it gets kind of weird. And even I'm still trying to understand that, cause like there's like basically different infinities. So the seventh dimension is basically, to make it simple, it's an infinity dimension. It means everything, infinity, all possibilities. But once you get to the eighth dimension, it's like multiple infinities, and I don't really understand how that works. But I thought about it, and the thing is, if you were a spiritual person and like you believe in like the soul or whatever, or like the conscience, this is where the unconscious will kind of be at, would be in the eighth dimension. And like the thing is, if you was to take, like, let's say if you were an eighth dimensional being, and like you were to take a concept from this infinity universe and bring it over into this infinity universe would become this infinity universe. You kind of know what I mean? Meaning that you will never ever, you who I'm talking to will never ever be able to actually jump back and forth between one omniverse to the other, because once you perceive another omniverse, you literally become that omniverse, and that omniverse literally becomes you. So yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. But once you get to the ninth dimension, it's kind of back to the first dimension again. And the reason why I say that is because once you get to the ninth dimension, that's just being aware of everything, period. Like, that's just like being conscious, okay? But also, this is also being like unconscious too, because now I can kind of explain it more. Because when you're unconscious, you're still conscious, but you're not conscious to a specific reality and dimension. You know what I mean? You're conscious to all that be. And I mean like even different omniverses and everything. That's why sometimes if y'all dream and y'all don't remember it. But that's a whole nother story too. But yeah, the ninth dimension is basically awareness of the conscious state. Like how being able to know, like, okay, I'm Kwame, I'm holding a paper, I'm looking at light, I'm recording a video, you know what I mean? And now just because, and this is the thing about these dimensions, no dimension is better or higher than the other. And if you want, you can always change these around if you want to, but it's better to put it inside of this this order, because it matches our numerical system really good, and you can understand it with your logical mind, versus like how if you was to mix it up and try to understand it somewhere else and you try to bring it into math, it won't really make sense. Okay, now when you get to the 10th dimension, which is okay, so the 10th dimension is kind of like the 0 dimension and the first dimension and 1. Okay, and this is also another pretty cool thing about numbers and why I like numbers now, because you see 10 is also 1. It's just okay, I can't really explain what I mean by that, so I'm gonna just go past it. But 10 is basically 1. Okay, but once you get to the 10th dimension, you're basically aware, but also you're aware that you can be aware and not aware at the same time. You know what I mean? So basically, once you get to the 10th dimension, that's basically full comprehension of basically everything. Okay, and but not just everything, but nothing as well. Okay, and this is the thing, because a lot of these dimensions, they multiply themselves and all that. But once you get to the 10th dimension, and also this is something about numbers. I'm like, if you guys can kind of like really understand what I'm saying, like this tells you something about numbers too. But once you get to the 10th dimension, like you basically get back to the first dimension, but you're just aware of everything else. I don't know if that made sense, but yeah, that was the easiest way that I was able to understand consciousness and dimensions with numbers. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it made sense. I really hope it made sense. That was my main thing, is to try to make this make as much sense as possible. Okay. If you guys like what I presented and everything, make sure you like and subscribe, and let's keep making them canine games. Yeah.